This video tutorial I will explain implementing Get User Details Web Service Endpoint. Here you can see user controller class, and in that here I have defined Get User method which accept user ID, and path parameter has ID, and that will be mapped to this user ID, and this method produces XML or JSON. And in this method what I am doing is I am creating a user REST object, and then I am calling get user by user ID method, and passing the user ID, and this method returns user DTO object, and I am copying user DTO object property values to user REST object. Then I am returning the user REST object, and user REST class has user ID, first name, last name, and email, and this will be returned to the caller. And user DTO class has this information. And we will see user service interface, and in user service interface get user by user ID method is there, which is abstract method, and that method is implemented in user service symbol class. And here you can see get user by user ID method which accept user ID, and in this method I am creating return user DTO object, and here I am calling find by user ID method of user repository object, and this method returns user entity object, and if user entity object is null, and it will throw user not found exception, else I am copying user entity object property values to user DTO object, and returns the user DTO object back to the controller. Next we will see user repository interface, and here you can see, and it has find by user ID method which accept user ID, and it returns user entity object. Here you can see users table. Suppose I want to get record based on email, then what I have to do is find by, then the column name. Here you can see find by, after that column name is email, like that I have to define. And if I want to get based on user ID, then find by, then column name, and the column name has underscore, we can ignore that. So like this I have to define. Now I am going to start the application in debug mode. Now application has been started. Now I am going to send request to login endpoint to get JWT token and the public user ID. And in the body I am sending email, which is the user ID, and the password. Click on send, and click on headers. We got 200 OK, successful response, and it has public user ID, which is this value we got from this column, and here we got JWT token. Copy this user ID, and in this URL add the user ID, which is the public user ID, and HTTP method is get, and in the header add the authorization key. I'm adding the authorization key and the token. Copy this. Then click on send. Request reached here, and here you can see the public user ID. And here we got the output. User ID, first name, last name, and the email. Now I am going to send invalid user ID. Click on send. And it will throw username not found exception. And here we got 500 internal server error, and here we got the error message, username not found exception. Now we will see how to add XML support and JSON support. By default, Spring Boot accepts JSON request and returns JSON response. And suppose we want to support XML request and XML response, then we have to add the dependency of Jackson data format XML in the pom.xml file. Here you can see pom.xml file, and here I have added Jackson data format XML dependency. And in Get User method, we have specified it produces XML or JSON. Now I will start this application. Suppose I want to get JSON response. Then what I have to do is, I have to add accept header, and value should be application slash JSON. Click on send. And here we got the output in the JSON format. Suppose I want the output in XML format, then change it to XML. Click on send. And here you can see we got response in XML format. You can get Java source code link for each video in the description section of the video. Here you can see the description section. Click on show more, and here you can see the Java source code links. Click on these links to get the Java source code.